Alrighty, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the AZ Snake Pit trade deadline reaction stream. I'm Michael McDermott, joined by Jack Sommers and James Attwood.
How you doing, gentlemen?
All right, so the first question, obviously, we'll talk about the David Peralta trade. What was your describe your favorite memory of Peralta and your thoughts on the return in the trade?
Favorite memory of David? Okay, you put me on the spot. There's a lot of them. I mean, just his overall enthusiasm is something that's kind of hard to forget. I think when he first came up, and just right out of the gate, his first week, just had a ton of hits and made such a great first impression. I think he was like 12 for 28 or something, when he first came up, and just really took the fan base by storm. And I think probably my favorite thing was him messing around with Greinke. They had a video of that the other day where he got Zach to do the drive in the bus thing, and there was another time when he was mic'd up and he was out in the outfield, and he was talking to Zach and saying, we got to get you to do this, we got to get you to do that, and Greinke just kind of looked at him and said, "You're ruining the team." Just in a kind of cranky way, just goofing with him. So I think those kinds of things, just the way his infectious personality and how he tried to get other teammates kind of, having fun, as far as that's concerned. How about you?
You want to go, James, or you want me to go?
Go ahead.
All right, so I'd probably have to go along with Jack with the driving the bus, getting Greinke to do the bus celebration. But if we for the next one, obviously, I'd probably have to go with. Actually, I actually remember being at the game when he took his major league debut. I'll go with that one. It's like not knowing who he is. Then I look up his bio. It was funny. I looked up his bio on there and it listed him at 165. I'm like, looking at him in person, it's like 165. He's bigger than Pollock. He looks like he's 20 pounds heavier. Of course, it was later corrected to 210 within a week.
Yeah,
but that's the first time I saw him. And at the time I had season tickets on the third baseline, so it's like you get to see these players up close as they're warming up. And he ended up going 2 for 4. I think both hits were pretty much identical. He ended up hitting 2 hard ground balls up the middle for base hits and then struck out in his other 2 at bats. I can't remember if I have the score. I think I scored that game on one of their programs, but I don't think I have it anymore. But that's probably my favorite Peralta memory, seeing him do well in his major league debut. After frantically trying to figure out who this guy was.
James?
I'm not sure if it was his debut or not. I do remember attending a Bronson Arroyo afternoon start with David Peralta suddenly being in center field and wondering who the heck he was. And this was right before Bronson Arroyo went ahead and, knew his body weight right off into the IL because he was pitching with no tendon in that elbow. And that's kind of one of my first big memories of him is Peralta coming out of nowhere to play center field. And looking at him wondering how he's a center fielder, not a corner outfielder. And then, but overall, my big memory of Peralta is just the infectious attitude. The guy always seemed to be smiling, even when things were kind of going rough. I mean, granted, that's what we see on the cameras and not behind closed doors, but the guy really seemed to be into the whole great team chemistry, trying to get things going, trying to get people to be positive and happy about playing a game and getting paid for it. And so it's more an overall general feeling to him than a specific one moment.
So anyway, question for you, Jack. Since you're probably the only one of the 3 of us that actually got to see him in that clubhouse environment, how much do you think they'll miss him in there?
Well, I think that things had changed in the clubhouse for sure. I mean, it wasn't the same group that, during his younger years. He seemed a little bit more reserved and not insular in any way. And it's not that, he didn't talk to anybody, but it seemed like he was kind of to himself a little bit more than you would normally expect for a guy like that. And it's understandable. I mean, he knew he was on the way out. He or that it was very likely, and he's an emotional guy, and he was preparing for it. So I think that was probably not easy for him. And it seemed like he interacted with his teammates a lot more in the dugout and on the field than in the clubhouse, I would say, from what I've seen. But that's I'm not there all the time. They do have limited times of periods when the media is allowed in, and so I think everyone also acts a little different in the clubhouse when the media is around too.
Sure.
So there's that. So I'm no expert on his situation, but at the same time, I do think that there was certainly less fun for him. If you remember last year, in the beginning of the year, with the other Venezuelan players kind of leading the pack between him and Asdrubal and of course Eduardo, who was the real instigator of all that, having fun, dancing around, the TikTok dances, all that, when they were playing well. And then, this guy got hurt, this guy got traded, this guy just didn't play well. And the season went to crap. So all of that fun went away. And I think, subsequent to that, knowing that he was going to be traded or likely to be traded, probably muted some of that impact in the clubhouse. And of course, I wasn't around in the clubhouse in 2019, so I couldn't say.
I was going to say, it reminds me that kind of that thing last year kind of reminded me when they had 5 Venezuelan players on the roster in 2014. It was Peralta, Ender Inciarte, Martin Prado. I'm trying to remember if there were any pitchers on that team or not. I think also Yasmani Tomas.
Yeah.
No, never mind. Tomas from Cuba, my bad.
So, Tomas is Cuban, but
I'm trying to remember. I'll look it up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously that was his rookie year, and over time he became. I guess he was a pretty neat combination of a guy that became like the senior statesman on the team, but at the same time a leader in fun as well. So that's definitely going to be missed. But it's the younger guy's turn, right? They got next.
Yeah, I missed two big names, obviously, in D-backs history, and I should be excoriated for that. Missed Miggy and Gerardo Parra as the other two. If I remember correctly, they all took a picture with the Venezuelan flag in front of them that year.
I think the funniest thing that came out of the interview with Mike Hazen when he discussed his conversations with David, and he said, David joked with him that maybe you need to get more pitching instead of more left-handed hitters, something along those lines. I thought that was pretty funny. Mike chuckled. He obviously revealed that, so it was a little self-effacing humor as well, acknowledging where the team's deep and where it's been maybe lacking a bit. So, but that sounds like something David would say.
Yeah, and David clearly understands that this is a business as well as a fun time for all, and he is on the way out where the youth is on the way in. There was very little chance he was going to wind up finishing his career in Sedona Red, and it was going to have to come down to just nobody wanted to touch him. And even then, there's still questions as to whether or not he'd have, finished out the year, or if they'd have found a way to give his bats away still.
Yeah, I was going to say, it came
to the Blue Jays, huh?
Moose. That one surprised me a little bit, but anyways, we'll talk about the not much of a return in the Peralta deal. Obviously, it looks like they picked up a lottery ticket prospect in Christian Soda.
Yeah, well, I think the return is, Jake McCarthy, right, and whoever else playing time.
Kind of just see which 3 best left-handed hitting outfielders you got, and then you leverage the odd man out in a trade to get fill other holes in the roster, like using, for example, if you wanted to send either Dalton Varsho or Alec Thomas in, leverage their control for starting pitching. I think this morning I kind of flipped the idea of maybe trading Dalton Varsho to the Astros to solve their center field needs and try and get some of their top prospects in the system and maybe a major league player in that return. I think that's just spitballing an idea.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't completely dismiss they didn't get anything in return. I mean, they liked the player that they got. They scouted him heavily, Serta, as an amateur. They tried to sign him as an amateur, I believe. So they were checking back in on him, and he became available. So I wouldn't dismiss that they got anything back, but like we're talking about it, the main thing is sorting out your outfield. That's the I talk a lot about this, on Snake Pit about the opportunity cost of not maximizing, player opportunity to prove what they can do and develop at the major league level.
Yep, and you're opening up the chance for someone to prove that they can be as good as Peralta was at his peak, in my opinion. Perhaps, maybe not in the same way.
McCarthy's never going to hit for the kind of power Peralta did at his peak, but I think they can both be comparable producers.
Yeah, well, we'll see about that even. I mean, you never know, right? I mean, McCarthy's a pretty strong guy. He's got power. He can hit the ball 420, 30, 40 feet. You never know. I mean, right now he hits the ball on the ground a little bit too much, doesn't hit,
Well, he's not pulling it.
Yeah, he's not pulling fly balls yet, but he's got the strength. I mean, he's got the body and the strength in there. And, Peralta didn't develop a lot of home run power right away. He was gaps and running them out, right?
He was hitting a lot of triples.
Yeah, that was a lot of his extra base hit value early on was doubles and triples.
Yeah, and I mean, those triples were, pulled shots down into the corner and, a gap shot that he just kept running and that kind of stuff. Yeah. The home run power kind of developed a little stronger a little later. I don't see any reason why McCarthy couldn't be 15 to 20 home run guy, honestly.
He's got the same. Oh, McCarthy's got a similar body type to Peralta, height, weight, pretty similar. If you're wondering.
But he's not there yet, for sure, and I wouldn't put that on him at this point. Go out, play defense, run, and put the ball in play and get on base and wreak havoc. That's what he needs to do.
At the same height and weight, McCarthy looks a lot leaner than Peralta, even when Peralta first came up. It's like Peralta's had that football body type. Body type of NFL defensive back kind of thing.
McCarthy is the actual football player.
He's got speed.
I remember Peralta coming up also because we were having problems with injuries and keeping, healthy outfielders out on the field that year. And it's like, well, now it's, now he's moving on so he can try to do the same thing again, get 3 healthy outfielders out there.
You don't have to worry about got plenty of depth in the outfield, that's for sure.
Now we do.
That's about the one position.
Although we still need to see how some of it's going to play.